Hello, my name is Dennis, and in this segment I want to discuss the AR-15. There's a lot of conflicting information circulating about the AR-15 rifle, and I want to try to present an unbiased look at the popular and vilified AR-15, especially since there's renewed talk about the banning of this particular model firearm. Within different segments, I'll be discussing the speed it can fire, the power, lethality, and the capacity of the rifle. Depending on what news channel you listen to, the AR-15 is described as a weapon of war, a killing machine, and capable of knocking airplanes out of the sky and destroying railroads.
But you know, semi-automatic weapons are not just about gun control, this is about national security. You know that these weapons can shoot down airplanes, they can blow up railroads. This is really a homeland security issue.
Or it might be described as a sporting rifle that's a good choice for any American to use for home or self-protection that's no more dangerous than any other gun. I'll be avoiding the use of words and phrases that elicit an emotional response and stick to the facts. In this first segment, we're going to start with speed. I've heard people claim different speeds at which the AR-15 can be fired, including 45 rounds per minute.
Now, this particular weapon is capable of firing up to 45 rounds per minute.
400 rounds per minute, 700 rounds per minute.
And he was not able to buy a weapon that shoots off 700 rounds in a minute. A lot of those people would still be alive.
800 rounds per minute, and even 3,600 rounds per minute.
Has ability with a 30 caliber clip to disperse with 30 bullets within half a second.
This is kind of tricky to address, but in short, there's no real set speed at which the AR-15 can be fired, and trying to name a speed appears to be disingenuous. You might be confused by this statement, so I'm going to clarify. The AR-15 is a semi-automatic rifle. That means one round is fired for every pull of the trigger. This is different from an automatic rifle, where one squeeze of the trigger results in rounds being discharged in rapid succession until either you run out of ammunition or you take your finger off the trigger. Now, there are also 3-round burst automatic rifles, but for this discussion, we're going to focus on fully automatic. This is an important distinction to understand when talking about rate of fire. Let's think about cars for a minute. If you take 5 different people and put those 5 different people into 5 identical brand new cars, same make, same model, same year, same trim, same options, same everything, and you tell those 5 people to drive on the exact same stretch of road at the exact same time, side by side, they're told to press the accelerator all the way down at the signal and not to let up off the accelerator until they've reached the set mark 2 miles down the road. All 5 of those people will accelerate at almost identical rates and reach almost identical top speeds. This is because the car is designed to be able to accelerate at a certain rate and drive at a certain speed. If the car is designed for a top speed of 120 miles per hour, no matter who you are, if you're not allowed to make any changes to the car, you're not going to be able to go faster than what it's designed to travel. Now, let's switch back to guns. Let's take those same 5 people and put identical M16 rifles in their hands. The M16 is select fire, so they're instructed to put the gun in fully automatic and to squeeze the trigger when signaled, not to take their finger off the trigger until they run out of ammunition. Again, all 5 people will fire those rifles at almost identical rate to fire. This is because the gun is designed to operate within a certain limit and fire at a certain rate. This is a capability of the gun, so it will fire the same rate regardless of who's operating it. Now remember, the AR-15 is semi-automatic, so if we take those same 5 people and give them all identical AR-15 rifles and tell them to fire the guns as fast as they can, they're going to be firing at distinctly different speeds, because now it's not about what the gun can do, it's about what the person shooting the gun can do. Let's talk about it another way. Bicycles. Do bicycles come with rated top speeds? Of course, you can buy a bicycle that's designed more for speed than rough terrain, but bicycles aren't marketed as being able to reach a top speed of anything. This is because the bicycle is not automatic. The bicycle is only capable of traveling as fast as the person riding it can pedal. This is the concept of the AR-15. It's not automatic, so in reality, it can only fire as fast as the person pulling the trigger. This is just the first part. The next thing we have to consider is the constant that's used to measure the speed at which is attributed to AR-15, which is rounds per minute. Everyone knows what a minute is, something that lasts for 60 seconds. People on both sides of the gun debate have used a number per minute as the fire rate of the AR-15. There are a couple problems with using minute as a constant, because it's very misleading when it comes to something that's not automatic. Let's think about it in terms most people can understand. Heart rate. I'm sure everyone has had their heart rate calculated in their lifetime. It's measured by beats per minute. When a nurse manually checks your heart rate, they don't sit there for 60 seconds counting beats. They count for 10 or 15 seconds. They count the number of beats in 10 seconds and multiply that number by 6, or they count for 15 seconds and then multiply that number by 4. They aren't looking at their watch to time your heartbeat. They're looking at their watch to time themselves. Your heart beats automatically, so you can get a relatively reliable snapshot of the person's resting heart rate for an entire minute by using just a small sample size. Now, just like with a heartbeat, when measuring the rate of fire of a gun, you don't count for an entire minute. You use a small sample size, the number of shots achieved in about 1 to 5 seconds. However many shots are achieved in that 1 to 5 seconds, that number is multiplied by 12 or 60. That gives you your shots per minute, but that number is misleading. Remember, we aren't talking about something that's automatic. It requires a person to manually squeeze the trigger each time. As you start to fatigue, you start to slow down. Using a small sample size only works with things that are at least relatively consistent, and a person being able to squeeze a trigger at the same speed for a full 60 seconds makes that far from a consistent measurement. The third problem with the claim of a specific fire rate and using minutes as the constant is the fact that nobody's going to fire for a full minute. 2 reasons. Number 1, only a belt feed allows for enough ammunition to possibly fire for a whole minute. The AR-15 it can be adapted to accept a belt, but most people don't bother making that modification because it makes the gun much less portable. It is still portable, but it's just much less portable. The next problem, even if you have a belt feed, is the barrel. The barrel would likely bend and the gas tube would likely melt before you got to a full minute. Here's a video of a fully automatic rifle trying to fire for a full minute.
I knew it had it.
They had to change the barrel after 700 rounds, and this gun is more durable than an AR-15. Here's another fully automatic rifle trying to shoot for a straight minute. also not an AR-15, but a more durable machine gun, and a barrel is destroyed after less than a minute. Here we have an AR-15 upper attached to a fully automatic lower. I have to point out that this is not how an AR-15 is designed. You can't buy them this way. There are some fully automatic rifles out there which are highly regulated, and someone lent this person a fully automatic mechanism, the firing mechanism, so he could test the limits of the AR-15 barrel and gas tube system.
Like an evil woodpecker. Not liking the bolt to the rear. Oh, this never gets old. That gas tube is hot, people. All right, X Products 50 round drum. Well, okay then. I think the word hot probably applies here. We're about to get a cook-off. She's stuck. I don't know if there's a round in the chamber. That's what's concerning me here. We're gonna keep going. Yep. Yep, she's done, people. Yeah, that was a hot bit of polymer it just got on me there. Burning the crap out of my hand. Let's cool her off and have a look, people. Let's do it. All right, guys, well, we've allowed the Palmetto State Armory upper to cool off, and I would say that it's definitely down. The gas tube pretty much just melted like a little strand of spaghetti. Ended up going 440 rounds.
You can see in this video how many times magazines and drums had to be changed. You can also see that the gun burst into flames before he shot 400 rounds. By assigning a large number to the gun and saying it can fire this insanely high rate of speed elicits an emotional response. While that high number might be the mechanical ability of the firing mechanism, it's beyond the mechanical ability of the gas system, which would cause the gun to fail before reaching 1 minute. Shooting semi-automatic is much slower, and the 45 round per minute is the most realistic estimate fire rate that I've seen. Also worth noting, when shooting as fast as you can, you're much less likely to hit your target.
If I wanted to fire this on full semi-automatic, all I do is keep firing. Now I won't probably hit the target, when I do this, when we look at the target later on, but I'm going to fire about
let's see.
5 shots.
Okay.
It's a
He said, I probably won't hit the target when I do this, but I'm going to fire about 5 shots. Now, a person trained in speed shooting will be able to hit targets, but there aren't really a whole lot of those shooters around. One of the things I live by is, if you try to mislead me in order to try to convince me of your argument, you probably don't have a good argument, and I shouldn't listen to you anyway. This would be like a car being sold claiming it can travel at 200 miles an hour, but the tires are only rated for 80 miles an hour. By the time you get the car up to 150 miles an hour, the car will burst into flames. That's exactly what happens when you try to shoot an AR-15 at 700 rounds per minute. It would burst into flames. The next part of this is that the AR-15 is presented as being faster than other guns.
An AR-15 style rifle, well, that's a semi-automatic weapon, meaning it fires 1 round when the trigger is pulled, then automatically reloads the chamber, making it ready to fire again. Handguns can also be semi-automatic, but some, like revolvers, they're not, meaning it can take a lot longer to fire multiple rounds.
As we mentioned before, the speed is about the person pulling the trigger when it comes to semi-automatic guns. Not so much the gun itself. Let's look at a professional speed shooter firing an AR-15.
And let's see if we can react and shoot 5. 5 on target in a second. Target in the middle. Here we go. I got a little bit excited. I actually fired 6 rounds. Let's go ahead and count back. I'm a revolver shooter by trade, so I work in numbers of 6 at a time. So that was 5 rounds and a 108. Now that was a little bit better. You saw how I was punching out right on the timer there? Let's take a look at it. A .96.
That was 5 rounds in 1 second, or 300 rounds per minute. Of course, he wouldn't be able to sustain that speed for a full minute, but this is the fastest shooter in the world here, and his max speed is 300 rounds per minute with the AR. And that doesn't even take into account time needed to reload. Now let's look at him shooting a pump action shotgun. That was 180 rounds per minute. Quite a bit slower, but still fast. Now let's watch him shoot a semi-automatic handgun.
So actually, guys, there it is. That was actually 27 rounds on target. The total time was a 3.71 of a second.
I did the math on that, and it came out to be about 438 rounds per minute. Again, not accounting for reloading, but that's even faster than what he did with the AR. Let's see him shoot a revolver.
Did 8 rounds in 1 second on 1 target.
Shooter ready. Stand by.
Okay, all right.
He did 8 rounds on 4 targets in 1.06.
Some, like revolvers, they're not, meaning it can take a lot longer to fire multiple rounds.
Wow, that was 480 rounds per minute. That was even faster, but reload is much slower with a revolver. So let's see him shooting with a reload involved.
And then he did the 6 shots, a reload, and 6 shots in 2.99 seconds.
Stand by.
Some, like revolvers, they're not, meaning it can take a lot longer to fire multiple rounds.
Well, that dropped it down to 120 rounds per minute. Now let's look at more of an average person shooting a bolt action rifle.
Go.
That was about 2 shots per second or 120 rounds per minute. Finally, here's one of a boy shooting a lever action rifle.
Fire! This 13-year-old is keeping up with a machine gun. Oh! Wow!
That looked like about 4 rounds per second, or 240 rounds per minute. Now I am using rounds per minute with the other firearms as well, even though I said that using rounds per minute is not really the best measurement. It's an unrealistic measurement, but it's the best thing that I could do for comparison, since everything that you find out there, if you decide to do the research on your own, will show rounds per minute when they're discussing the AR-15. So I kind of did the math just at rounds per minute just to give you something better to compare to and a lot easier to compare to. So we can see that any gun can be fired quickly. It just depends on who's pulling the trigger. And when the same person was firing different types of guns, the AR was not the fastest. So what did we learn here? Basically, most claims of the AR-15 speed are grossly exaggerated, and it seems like it might be to instill fear, though it could be out of genuine ignorance. But should policy be made by people that don't know the facts? While 45 rounds per minute seems a little low, it is much more realistic than 800 rounds per minute. And that speed is no more faster than any other semi-automatic firearm, it seems. It might even be a little slower. And even if you did manage to fire an AR at the rate claimed by many people, the gun would burst into flames and no longer be usable in less than a minute. So in this respect, the AR-15 doesn't seem to be any more dangerous than any other semi-automatic firearm. But semi-automatic guns are faster than other types of guns, such as revolvers, bolt action, and lever actions. Next time I'll be discussing the use of AR-15s in mass shootings. Is it really the gold standard and the weapon of choice for mass shooters, or is it something else? Follow us on YouTube and Facebook. Let me know what you think. And as always, stay safe.